It's time for tight ends in the Big Ten. The positional breakdowns continue, and we're talking where the Gophers rank when it comes to tight ends across the conference. That and a projected depth chart, you're going to want to hear this.
Hey, you are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week. That's Monday through Friday. Gophers, Gophers, Gophers. This is the show where we always continue to row. It is officially football season. In the last few days, we've been doing positional breakdowns. Today, we're jumping into none other than tight ends. But before we do that, please hit that subscribe button down below and make sure on YouTube you hit subscribe so you can join this community as we build it up and grow for the season. And if you're more of an audio listener, be sure to follow wherever you get your podcasts. Follow at Locked On Golden Gophers and leave a 5-star review. It's much appreciated and it helps others find the show. Now let's jump in to the main topic of focus today. That's right, we're talking tight ends. We are talking the positional breakdown for tight ends, and that is what we're going to do. Now, first, as we always do, let's talk about departures. So the main departures from last year to this year when it comes to the tight end room, you've got Austin Henderson, who transferred to Liberty, and he transferred in the middle of last season, didn't really get time, so you can't really call it an impact departure, but we did have one major impact departure, and that was O'Keefe, who was drafted in this past year's NFL draft in the 6th round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's playing with Tom Brady in the Bucs. Now, he's a scrappy team-first guy that will do absolutely anything necessary in what his coaches are asking him to do. Anything to help the team, a team-first mentality. Now, he played 5 years here at the University of Minnesota, and he was mainly on special teams as a freshman, played in a couple games as special teams, and each and every year he progressed. He got better. He ended up starting a couple games his sophomore year. He started a handful of games his junior year and kept getting more and more progression in his time here, doing exactly what was asked of him to help his team. By last year, by his super senior year, he started all 13 games, and he also caught 7 receptions for 101 yards and a touchdown. But the main reason why he got drafted, the main reason he was so valuable to the Golden Gophers offense these past couple of years, and especially last year, was he was the best run-blocking tight end in the entire nation. I say that with no hesitations. I say that with no second guessing. O'Keefe was the best run blocker by far when it came to tight ends, and that is valued. That is something that not everyone is willing to do. Now you add in the fact that he can catch the ball, he can produce, and has fairly sure hands. That's when you start talking about a fullback, H-back type guy that can move out to the tight end to run back, that can play in the backfield and catch the ball, pass block, run block, you name it. That's what O'Keefe can be. He can be exactly what the Tampa Bay offense loves to have, what the Patriots offense had in James Devlin for so many years. Even what Kyle Juszczyk sort of does for the 49ers. That's the type of role that O'Keefe plays, and that's what we're losing in this room. But we still have a strong room, and it's headed off by our projected number 1 tight end, Brevyn Spann-Ford. I am slightly biased for him because, he's a good family friend. His father is my godfather. And so it's just like, I have my bias, but bias aside, this kid is talented. This kid has the stuff to play on Sundays. And he's even recognized by PFF as a top 25 tight end in the nation. heading into 2022. A top 25 recognized by PFF, which everybody goes to PFF when it comes to the advanced metrics and advanced stats and breaking down and ranking every position, but also the difficult positions like offensive line, like tight end, where you can't put it all into your average stats of yards, touchdowns, and so on. But PFF listed him in the top 25 tight ends in the nation, and he came in at number 20. He was one of 4 Big Ten tight ends to be listed in the top 25 this upcoming year. That includes Eric All, Sam Laporta, and Payne Durham, along with Brevyn Spann-Ford. Those are the 4 guys in the Big Ten that made that list. Now, when he was finally healthy, because in the COVID year, he had some injuries. We had COVID issues across the team. He got to play some games, but he wasn't fully healthy. Now, when he was finally healthy last year, we saw him get an uptick in production, and he hauled in 23 receptions for almost 300 yards at 296 and a touchdown. Now, honestly, to me, this is crazy low for what I truly believe he can be and can produce with this offense. The fact that he only had 1 touchdown is disgraceful to how the Gophers were running their offense last season. He is a 6'7", 270-pound athletic tight end. The people that match up against him will be linebackers who can't keep up and safeties that will get absolutely bullied. In the red zone, he should be your first look, maybe even your second look, and then you can maybe run the ball for your third and fourth looks. I mean, he's built to be a red zone nightmare, but we didn't use him that way. Thank you, Mike Sanford, once again. But Kirk Sharaka is back in town, and Kirk Sharaka has mentioned they need to get him more involved. He's also mentioned how he's been improving in the run blocking game to make sure he's staying on the field more. So he's not being taken off on more run plays. He can do it all and do it consistently. So he put in the work this offseason, and that is encouraging from Brevyn Spann-Ford. Now, in the 4 games that Pat Freiermuth had with Kirk Sharaka as the offensive coordinator at Penn State, Pat Freiermuth produced 310 yards and 1 touchdown in 4 games. He only played 4 games that year, and he produced 310 yards in those 4 games. Brevyn's production should at least be double the yardage that he put up last season, which would put him near the 600-yard mark. He came in at 296, so you double that, and you're just under 600 yards. Now, on top of that, 1 touchdown is pitiful. I think he should have 4 touchdowns at the minimum with his given size, with who he would be lining up against in the red zone. He is made for the end zone. So those are the minimums that you should be seeing with him. And I think that is realistic when we're looking at a Kirk Sharaka offense incorporating Brevyn Spann-Ford. So to see nearly, maybe even more, but nearly 600 yards and 4+ touchdowns, that is going to be a massive jump for a guy who is 6'7", 270, and it will put him on NFL radars. We've talked about this in a past episode before, but that is enough to get him into the 2nd, 3rd round of the NFL draft. Probably 3rd round because he would only have that 1 year of massive production, although you see the uptick from his first 2 years where he didn't really get much looks to the 3rd year where he gets nearly 300 and a touchdown, and then the 4th year where he goes ballistic. That would be enough trajectory for scouts to take notice, paired with his athleticism, paired with his size, paired with his measurables. Honestly, that production would be similar to what we see from Brant Keith over at Utah, who was projected to go in the NFL draft last year and be a top-tiered tight end in the draft. He's a top 3 tight end in the country, and that's about what he would put up statistically. So I've already discussed this. I believe Brevin is the Gophers' next NFL pass catcher. I believe Chris Ottman-Bell could get there, depending on how he shows out this year. Maybe it's a camp invite, maybe it's a lower pick. But I believe Dalen Wright has the talent to get there, but I believe Brevyn Spann-Ford will be an NFL draft pick. So it's just all comes down to the production of what he sees and how that production can help increase and determine how high up he would be drafted. Now, moving on to the 2nd tight end in the room, the TE2, who will also get a heavy amount of usage, or at least time on the field, snaps in the tight end slot, will be Jameson Gears. He is definitely the next man up in the tight end room. Great athleticism, solid in the run blocking, has nice hands. Gears will be the guy that fills in for Brevyn Spann-Ford, or when we run in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, Gears will be that next guy up. Maybe Caller up here and there, but Gears will probably be the first option when it comes to tight end 2 on the field. Now, that said, he is a tight end that will see a lot of work this season, regardless of being pass blocking, run blocking, or going out on actual routes. And he'll likely have the second most snaps at the position. Now, last year was a redshirt year for him. He didn't see any action until the bowl game, in which he didn't have any receptions or anything like that, but he did see some snap production during the bowl game versus West Virginia. In the spring game, he saw 5 targets for 3 receptions for 40 yards, which is solid. It's solid, and it also showed that we were incorporating the tight end early in that spring game, which you like to see because, as the spring game goes on, it becomes more of a development period, but the opening couple series are typically you're looking for certain things of how you will incorporate moving into fall camp in the next season. So seeing the tight end worked in there more was something good to see early on. And so then the third tight end we're looking at in the depth chart is Nick Callerup. He played in all 13 games last year, but it was mainly on the special teams, and he played in 5 games during the COVID season, again, mainly on special teams. Now, I do likely think that he'll maintain that role, but he'll likely be that third tight end within the room as well. So he'll have that special teams role at the very least, but he could find some time on the field in tight end snaps this season too. Now, with that special teams value and being the third team tight end on the depth chart, his usage could go up. Knowing the Gophers do play some 12 personnel and even sometimes some 13 personnel with 3 tight ends on the field, he would be one of those 4 or 5 tight ends that travels. So I don't know if every fan knows this, but not everybody on the Gophers roster travels for away games. Typically, I believe the Big Ten standard is 62 players can travel. So you have maybe 100, 105 kids on the roster, and 62 of those get to travel to away games, which means you only bring a certain amount of players per position. Now, typically you'll travel 2 to 3 quarterbacks. You'll probably travel at least 4 running backs. You'll probably travel 5 or 6 wide receivers, depending on your offensive play style. If you're more of a pass heavy, then you'll travel more receivers. But with the Gophers play style, with the running, how we run, sometimes we play 2 tight ends, sometimes we even have the 3 tight ends, like I mentioned, we'll likely travel at least 4 tight ends, which means Nick Callerup will be on the traveling roster. So then you find ways to get those roster players incorporated, even if they're not taking a ton of snaps at tight end. So that's why you see a lot of special teams opportunities for him. Now, like I said, he'll be one of those first 4 guys for sure. And then in the spring game, he did have 1 catch on 2 targets for 6 yards. So like I said, he'll see some snaps in that actual tight end slot, being one of the travel guys. Now that moves into, I just said, probably 4 guys at least, in my opinion. You'll likely see 4 guys travel at the tight end position. So that leaves 1 more. Now, who will that be? I think it'll be someone in the tier of Spencer Alvarez, Nathan Jones, and Frank Biermann. Now, Spencer Alvarez and Nathan Jones are both true freshmen, and Frank Biermann is transferring in from Iowa Western Community College. So here's my thoughts on them. Nathan Jones is a true freshman, a 3-star tight end from Texas who made the first team All-State as a senior, second team All-State as a junior. He had 54 receptions for 802 yards, and get this, 16 touchdowns in Texas high school football in his senior season. That's just his senior season, not his collective career in high school. His senior season, he had 802 yards and 16 touchdowns. You love to see that from a guy playing in a state with great high school football. Now, he was also a 2-time All-State in basketball and in track as well. So you see the athleticism. You see that it's not a fluke. He's got top tier athleticism and talent in his genes. He's gifted. But overall, he has hands. He can catch the ball. He's made small window catches. You can see that within his huddle film in high school. He has great size at 6'5", 235, coming in as a true freshman. Now, I do believe he could find a role on special teams, which would then allow him to also potentially make it into that travel roster. I think he has a better pass catching and route running ability than Nick Callerup, so it also gives you a guy to develop for when Brevyn Spann-Ford takes the next jump, because you'll have Jameson Gears take that next move into the TE1 slot likely, but a guy like Nathan Jones, you could be developing and grooming to help build that talent in the room as well. Now, if someone has to step up in this group, I expect it to be Nathan Jones. The next guy in this group is Spencer Alvarez. He's a former offensive tackle and tight end in high school. He's making the full-time switch to tight end, which makes sense with his build. It's a little lighter than what you would see from a Division I offensive lineman. He comes in at about 260 pounds, which you're expecting your offensive lineman to be heavier than that. At the Division II level, we were pushing for our O-lineman to be in that 285 plus, 295, 300, but you want healthy weight, good weight that's more muscle and that you're able to move fluidly and quickly with it. You don't want to just have the weight. You want healthy weight. So seeing that 260, 255 pounds, it makes more sense for him to switch to that tight end role. That said, in this system that leans more run heavy and less passing, he would be a great player for future years to be an excellent run blocking and even pass blocking tight end, especially in the 12 and 13 personnels that I've mentioned. Now, he did have 22 passes for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns, so he does have the ability to catch the ball. He doesn't have stone hands, so it's good to see, and it'll be a guy to keep an eye on to see how he develops. Now, if Nathan Jones isn't that fourth traveling tight end, then I think that role would go to Frank Biermann. Frank Biermann had 2 seasons of experience at Iowa Western Community College. She's officially a preferred walk-on for the team, primarily a run blocking and pass blocking tight end that helped his team at Iowa Western Community College to pass for nearly 5,000 yards and 46 passing touchdowns and 2,700 rushing yards and 34 rushing touchdowns in his 2 years there. Great production from that team, and he was a great blocking option. So when you're looking at that Coke Heath throw that we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this is something that he could potentially step into early as he picks up the playbook. And if he has that mentality of being a grinder and doing whatever it takes for the team. So even though he's a preferred walk-on, I do think he has an opportunity to see valuable minutes depending on how he shows out in fall camp. Now, the rest of the tight end room includes Sam Pickerin, Jack DeSano, and Wyatt Schroeder. Pickerin hasn't seen game action in the 5 years that he's been with the team. He's a great team guy, but I wouldn't count on him getting on the field this year either. Schroeder was a commit on scholarship to South Dakota State, but he committed as a preferred walk-on to the Gophers. Instead, he really, again, another team guy, but he hasn't seen the field or any game action in the 2 years he's been here. And I'm not fully sure that I expect it, seeing the talent that is coming in as true freshmen. And then you have DeSano, who is also a new preferred walk-on as well, likely set up for a redshirt this year. So that's the room, that's the depth chart, and we're going to move on to how they rank in the conference talking next. But first, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Built Bar. See, Built Bar, they've been working on new flavors, and they make them delicious, like you know. I've tried the new s'mores puffs and the new cookie dough chunk puffs, both of them phenomenal. I had to go back to my favorite, the peanut butter brownie recently, but one thing you can count on when you're looking at your Built Bars is that they're going to be power packed with protein and they're going to taste delicious. They'll probably be low calories as well. And to me, low calories is around that 180 or less. Most of their bars come in at that calorie count, and it's not very much sugar, maybe 4 or 5 grams of sugar. Maybe the sweetest bars that have the most sugar would be 8 grams of sugar. That's all you're getting, but they taste like a candy bar. So it tastes good and it's better for you. You should give it a try over at built.com, and you can use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order. And that's not just this order. It's every time you go back to restock, you can use promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at built.com. So thank you again for making Locked On Golden Gophers your first listen when it comes to Gophers sports. I truly appreciate it. We're building the community over here, and it's fun. It's a good time, and the season is getting ready to kick off. We're going to talk about what's coming up with fall camp and how you can go see your Golden Gophers in practice in the next segment of the show. But right now, I want to talk to you about where this tight end room ranks across the Big Ten. So where do we rank within the conference? Well, I'm just going to go down the list that I have for you, and we'll talk a little bit about the top 10 teams. 11 through 14, we'll just give it to you. But number one, I believe in the conference at the tight end position is Iowa. Sam Laporta is a top 5 tight end in the nation. And then you also have Luke Lachey waiting in the wings. Both of those guys are NFL level talents, and they remain to be tight end U over at Iowa. I mean, George Kittle, Noah Fant, I'm slipping on a couple other names, but they produce tight ends and DBs. Iowa always does it, and I will not be surprised to see both of those guys eventually go as well. Coming in at number 2, we have Purdue with Payne Durham leading the way. Payne Durham and Aiden O'Connell's connection, it's going to keep growing this season, especially as Purdue loses their best wide receiver last year in Bell. He is officially on the Cleveland Browns. And then Milton Wright was supposed to step into that number 1 position, and he is not eligible academically. So that leaves the wide receiver room a little bit sparse. You've got guys like Tyrone Tracy, Brock Thompson, but I expect the connection between Payne Durham and Aiden O'Connell to be the most key and to be even better than it was from last year. Now, last year he had 45 receptions for 467 yards and 6 touchdowns. So I expect better numbers than that between the two this year, bringing them to number 2 in the conference. Number 3, I've got at Michigan. They've got a vicious run blocker in Eric All, who also can do the pass catching, 437 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. He's an all-around tight end. He's rated as a top 10-ish tight end in most outlets. PFF has him as I think top 8 or top 7 type guy. So he's got talent. He's got the ability all around, and that brings him in Michigan at number 3. Number 4 is us, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. That's where I have the Gophers tight end room heading into this season. Now, Brevyn Spann-Ford has all the talent and the ability to be a top 2 tight end in the conference. I truly believe that. It just comes down to, will the Gophers give him the opportunity to increase that production and produce? Now, like I said, Gears is also a solid talent, a young talent that will be developed over time as well. So having both those guys is definitely beneficial and brings the Gophers tight end room to number 4. Number 5, I have Nebraska coming in. Travis Vokalek is the second biggest tight end in the conference, and he's paired with a new offensive coordinator coming from Pitt, who saw 777 yards and 10 touchdowns to their tight end position last year. So with Travis Vokalek's build and being the second biggest tight end behind Brevyn Spann-Ford, he comes in, Vokalek comes in at like 6'5", 260. And seeing an offensive coordinator that likes to get the tight end involved, they're probably extremely happy to make that pairing. And I think he will be a valuable addition at the offensive coordinator position for Nebraska in the tight end room. Number 6, I've got Penn State with Theo Johnson leading the way. He's had solid production overall, but he's a great in the blocking game, especially pass blocking. So Theo Johnson and Penn State coming at 6. Number 7, we've got Ohio State. Not sure who will end up being the starter there to fill in for Ruckert's role, but they usually find someone to step in. Now, if that is G. Scott Jr., who is a converted wide receiver moving to the tight end position, that could be dangerous. That could be something that just makes an already dangerous team even better. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. Ohio State at 7. Wisconsin comes in at 8. Ferguson's gone. Again, not sure who they'll start, but they tend to always find someone that is great at run blocking and pass blocking and usually can be consistent in the route running and pass catching game. So historically, they're pretty good at it. Plus, their guys are always run blockers, as I said. So I got Wisconsin coming at 8. Number 9, we've got Michigan State with Daniel Barker, who transfers from Illinois. Daniel Barker had a lot of expectations heading into last season. He was projected to be a top 5 tight end in the Big Ten. Only came up with about 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, kind of much lower than his expectation. So I'm still tentative on him, and we'll see how much he gets used at Michigan State, where they come in at number 9. Then finally, number 10, we've got Indiana. Similar to Wisconsin, they always find someone who steps up. So I expect no different, replacing Peyton Hendershot, who went off to the NFL. Then 11, we have Illinois. 12, we have Maryland. 13, Rutgers. And 14, Northwestern. So to wrap that up, it's 1 Iowa, 2 Purdue, 3 Michigan, 4 Minnesota, 5 Nebraska, 6 Penn State, 7 Ohio State, 8 Wisconsin, 9 Michigan State, 10 Indiana. 11 is Illinois, 12 is Maryland, 13 is Rutgers, and 14 is Northwestern. So lastly, I just want to give you an update on some things from fall camp and when that's right, you listening to this podcast can go and watch your Gophers get some live fan practices in this fall camp. We're going to talk about that next. All right, Gophers fans. So it is officially fall camp, and there are some opportunities where you can go and watch the Gophers this fall. The Gophers will officially host their family days this Saturday, August 6th, and their open practice starts at 2 p.m. at Huntington Bank Stadium. Now, this day, I don't know why that was so hard for me to say, but it's Huntington Bank Stadium. This Saturday, the day will also include their diaper drive and the decorated oars, which have both been delayed from the spring game in this past spring because of this bad weather that did produce on that spring day game afternoon. So what that actually entails is Family Day. It's going to be sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota. It'll include a fan zone in the West Plaza with inflatables, yard games, and photo stations. And then they also will have their annual diaper drive where fans are encouraged to bring disposable diapers and wipes. And that'll all be donated to Diaper Bank of Minnesota for families in need. It's a great cause. I hope to see you guys out there. I know I'm going to go check that game out and be a part of family night as well. And then you can also bring decorated oars that will be added to the inside of Huntington Bank Stadium to the tunnel where the players will see them before they walk out each and every game. It's a way to be involved in the community and help your Gophers get jacked before those kickoffs. And then lastly, there are 2 other practices that will be open to fans this fall camp. So we've got this Saturday, August 6th, as I've already mentioned, at 2 p.m. at Huntington Bank Stadium. Then you've got Thursday, August 11th at 7:45 p.m. at Huntington Bank Stadium. Man, it's hard to say those 3 words together fluidly. Huntington Bank Stadium. So Thursday, August 11th, 7:45 p.m., HBS. And then Monday, August 10th at 4:15 p.m., I think I just said the wrong day. So Monday, August 15th. I think I said 10th. Monday, August 15th. Just to make sure we have the clear day there at 4:15 p.m. at the Athletes Village. Those are the open practices. Be sure to be out there. Be sure to cheer your Gophers on. Tomorrow we're talking about offensive line and how our group ranks across the conference. That's going to do it for us today. I truly appreciate you listening. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow wherever you get your podcasts. Let's grow this thing. Again, this is the show where we always continue to grow. This is Kane Rob signing off. Have a good one.